What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of the Undergrad Forum. Now, this is going to be a video that a lot of you have been requesting, and it's a follow-up to how to properly do the condensed notes. I've been getting a lot of questions as to what do I put in my condensed notes. I'm putting too much stuff in. I feel like I'm not putting enough stuff in. What about textbooks? What about PowerPoints? What do I do? Mo, your strategy's crazy. Okay, calm down, man. Chill. It's not that serious. All right, so I took some notes here, all the questions you guys wrote, and I'm going to try to get to them. Let's see. Condensed notes. What were they? Let's just kind of go over it. Oh, okay. On my phone. What were they? Let's just go over that, okay? You are going to take all of the content you have. Textbook material, PowerPoint lecture material. Usually it's what you have. You'll have some more, but we'll get to that point later. You take that, you read the textbook, you read the PowerPoints, and you have an understanding of the content now. Then you're like, okay, I've read that. That's good. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to create condensed notes. That is, I'm going to go through my textbook and my lecture notes. First, the lecture notes. Make some notes out of everything that's critical, that's high yield. You have to know stuff. Then I'm going to go to my textbook and just add in some stuff that I think is important. I'm not going to rewrite the textbook. I'm not going to do chapter outlines. That stuff's worthless. We did it in elementary school, and really, I thought it was busy work. But you have to think about what you're doing. You have certain material that's being covered in lecture, and it's important material according to the professor. And what you're going to do is just supplement the material with stuff you find in the book that makes it easier for you to understand and remember the content. That's all you're doing, okay? And now you've created a packet of notes that have content from the lectures, that have content from the books, and now you can use that as a study aid. Okay, so then comes the question, what do you add? Too much, too little, whatever. It has to be enough that what your whole goal is just to read those notes over and over again, as opposed to having go through all of the book again and go through all of the lecture notes. But that seems very challenging, and I understand that point. So here's what you do. It's called the onion method, or I'm calling it the onion method. I think I'm taking this analogy from Shrek, so sorry, Disney. But seriously, here's what's going on. You start off with the core, all right? The core details, the things you have to learn to understand the material, things you just have to know to pass the exam. That's the first things that you have to get your hands on. You have to put that in the notes, okay? That's like the core. If, worse would come to worse, electricity ran out, you didn't have food, you had to take the test tomorrow morning, you were asleep for a week, sleeping beauty stuff, whatever, you would wake up the next morning and you would have the core information, you would know enough of the basics to pass the exam. That's like the first thing you got to worry about, okay? So, but normally life isn't that chaotic and we don't have to worry about those kind of things. So, first thing you do is just get that stuff in the condensed notes, okay? You take that from the lecture slides, you take that from the book, and you put it on a piece of paper. I don't care if you type it or write it by hand or if you use crayons or finger paint. I don't care. Do whatever works. Okay, so that's what you do. Then, as time progresses and you have more time, you're going to read that again like, okay, this is kind of boring. Let's add some more detail to it. And then as you know, because you have more time, you'll go through the book again and you'll go through the lecture notes again and add more and more detail. So now you've had the core of the onion, and now you're just adding layers and layers of detail. And you keep doing this, and you keep going through the core notes, or your condensed notes, excuse me. And what you're doing now is going over the material multiple times and adding more and more detail. The more detail you add, of course, that shows that you have mastered more and more material. Now you're getting into minutia, and that's a good thing, right? Because now any question that comes your way, you're going to be able to slam it. So, what does it mean when we say do condensed notes? Start off with the core facts of things you just have to know. These are called high yield facts. And add on minutia and more details and more things to help you remember as you do more run-throughs of the material. Because that way, you're keeping yourself safe. You're learning the core material and you're adding more detail as time allows. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time. It's just a reality. You'll have a lot of exams back to back and you can't add too many layers. But try your best and go through those notes over and over. And that's the key. Going through your condensed notes over and over again is the point. Because by having a small packet of notes, you go through them, you remake them again, and you remove stuff you've learned. You're like, okay, this is getting boring now. Let's delete it. This is preferably why you would do it on like a computer, so you can just easily delete, copy, cut, instead of having to rewrite by hand. You just print them out again. And that's what you do. The whole point is going over the material again and again. And if you've made your notes dense enough, but still left out the minutia, your core notes themselves, or your condensed notes, excuse me, will be enough for you just to keep memorizing. You don't have to go back to the book. You don't have to go back to lecture slides. You can just stick with your notes. That's difficult. I know it's very uncomfortable to say that's I don't feel comfortable. I want to go back to the book. I want to go back to the notes. That's fine, but you really should try your best to stick with the core notes. That's really how it works. That's the strategy. We just laid it out. Do the onion method. And Shrek, yes, I just took your analogy. Get over it. Okay, let's see what else I wrote here. Yes, layers of an onion. Genius. Oh my God, this is so good. Okay, that's all it is. And I guess the last thing I wrote here is multiple passes. Read those core notes multiple times. You will notice that, say it's like the weekend before an exam and it's like Friday, you roll up in the library, see all your friends there, and they got stacks of textbooks and stacks of like PowerPoint lecture slides. You're like, oh man, I gotta go through all this again. And you roll up with like a stack of papers this thick, and like, oh, boom, you throw it on the table, and that's all you gotta study. And everyone's like, what in God's name is that? You're like, dude, this is all the notes. This is all I gotta study. It's all I gotta memorize. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to leave in 3 hours and go like watch a movie, and everyone's going to be like, God, I hate you. But if you share this method with them, they'll love you too, right? So that's like what you want to get to the point of doing, because what those people most likely did was they just read it and they carried on with their lives. They didn't keep coming back to it and repeating, and it is kind of difficult to do. It's not very fun, but that's the one way, really, seeing the material multiple times that you can be assured that you know the material and you've mastered it. And that's the beauty of kind of constantly modulating your notes, because you're going to keep adding stuff and removing stuff based on what you've learned and what becomes new to you then. So that's how the condensed notes work, guys. Hopefully this helps you. It's not that serious. It's not that complex. And the one thing I want to say, especially for the younger people starting off making these notes, do not worry about making them perfect. If you just made notes and you're like, this is garbage, so what? You trust me, you have learned a lot by just making the notes. The active process of making notes itself is a learning process. And that really is important, because if someone were to say to you, hey, can I like get a copy of your notes? Sure, give them a copy, but the reality is it will not be very helpful to them, because you make your notes and you constantly modify them and add and remove stuff for your understanding. So you know your notes the best. It's not really going to be helpful for anyone else, unfortunately. So tell your friends about how to do it, and they can make their own notes and they can really learn, because making the notes in and of itself, rewording stuff and writing and really sitting there thinking, that's a huge learning process. And going through it over and again is not so much learning, but now remembering and memorizing everything. So it's a simple strategy. One thing I do want to add, you will not always have time to do core notes. Hopefully, or excuse me, condensed notes. I don't know why I keep saying core notes here. I think I'm getting a bit tired. But truly, you will not always have time, and that's just a reality. Most of the time, if you push yourself real hard, you can do it. But sometimes you just realize, I got like 4 tests coming up in a very short period of time. Condensed notes are not going to be that great. And you just have to kind of do your best and just make whatever notes you can and just go on. So you won't always have this beautiful time of creating the core and layer, going through it a bunch of times. So I want to expose that component of reality to you, that maybe it won't always work that way. In college, it kind of should, but in med school, sometimes things get a bit tough, and you kind of just need to make whatever notes you can and go on with your life and learn as fast as you can. So do not worry, guys, if you can't always make perfect, beautiful notes every time. That's just a reality. Sometimes things get tough, sometimes things get weak. This notion of condensed notes is intensive, it is a lot of work, and it's really a way to hit mastery. Unfortunately, there always isn't time to master everything, but do the best you can, guys, and it will work out. All right, I hope this helps. I hope this clears up a lot of notions on how to do the condensed notes properly and some of the strategies on how to do them. If you have any questions, leave them below. Send me a message. I don't know, send me a comment or video response, whatever you can do on YouTube. I'll figure out how to respond to you. And if you can, share this video with your friends, let them subscribe. It's all about helping each other out, guys. I don't get much out of it except knowing that I get a lot of messages from you guys telling me stuff works, and it makes me so happy. So share it with your friends, help each other out, learn, progress. We're in a self-effacing, altruistic field, guys. Help each other out, learn the best you can. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this video, hope it cleared things up, and as always, enjoy your studies.